Baseball is dead. Rest in peace. This is my favorite part of spring training. My absolute favorite part. Some will say it's the beginning part when you see guys roll up for the first time. Maybe they've got a new uni on for the first time. You get to see them in the new cap for the first time outside of the press conference. Some may say the best part is when the games start. You get to see guys on the mound. You get to see guys in the batter's box, all that stuff. No. From a content perspective, my favorite time of spring training, unequivocally, is when they put a microphone in front of superstars' face for the first time. That's when you get all the juice. That's like the epilogue of the offseason. All the stories that were written over the winter. Now you get to actually hear it from the other side or from the horse's mouth. We got a lot of that since our last recording. We got to hear from Bryce Harper about the comments that Dave Dombrowski made about him not being elite at the end of the season press conference. We never got to hear from Bryce Harper since that incident. We since have heard from him. The Marcus Semien and Corey Seager drama from Texas that I don't want to say led to Semien getting traded to the Mets, but he has since been traded to the Mets, and we haven't heard from Seager since that report came out that maybe all wasn't well in that clubhouse. We also haven't heard from guys like Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor since there was a story written about the clubhouse chemistry not being on point and very businesslike, I guess, with the Mets. We've heard from both of them since then. And then obviously since the Red Sox, since the Phillies had released Nick Castellanos, we've now heard from Nick Castellanos for the first time publicly in a Padres cap. So a lot has happened. You know, a lot of microphones have been placed in front of some very interesting and willing participants, and I'm excited to break it all down here today. But before we do that, download the Underdog Fantasy app, sign up with the promo code Jared, get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a special pick on Underdog. Yeah, this is where would you like? I feel like we have to start with Bryce Harper. I feel like we've been waiting the longest for this one. I think it's the one with probably the most juice, because if it continues to be a situation where he's not super pumped, I don't know. Is there a trade in the future here? I don't know. But here's Bryce Harper. Here's Bryce Harper on Dave Dombrowski comments.
I mean, I don't get motivated by that kind of stuff. You know, I for me, it was kind of wild, the whole situation of that happening. I think the big thing for me was, you know, when we first met with this organization, it was, hey, you know, we're always going to keep things in-house, and we expect you to do the same thing. And so, you know, when that didn't happen, kind of took me for a run a little bit. So I don't know, you know, it's part of it, I guess. You know, it's kind of a wild situation, you know, that even happening. Obviously, I didn't have the year that I wanted. Obviously, I didn't have the postseason I wanted. My numbers weren't where they needed to be. I know that, and you know, I don't need to be motivated to be great, you know, in my career or anything else. So that's just not a motivating factor for me. You know, for Dave to come out and say those things, it's kind of wild to me still.
So that the last part there is the most intriguing to me. He names names, Dave Dombrowski. For Dave to say that, that's kind of wild to me. Even still, like, this happened in October, and we are now in mid-February, and still to Bryce Harper, he's saying it's wild to me that Dave handled it like that. I also think, to double down on that, I think it's wild that they allowed Bryce Harper to get to camp, report to camp, and get in front of a camera with a microphone without getting Dave Dombrowski and Bryce Harper in a room to get on the same page before Bryce goes out and voices his feelings about the matter. That to me is surprising, because I know Kevin Gregg over there, he used to be with the Red Sox. Now he's with the Phillies. He handles all the media over there. And I feel like a Kevin Gregg move would be, hey, let's get in the same room. Let's talk this out so that when we all talk to the media, we're all on the same page, and it's a non-story by that point. And Dave Dombrowski is also a guy that I feel like he has to know that this is still going to be a story. It's not like, oh, it happened in October, everyone's probably over it. No, Bryce hasn't gotten to say his piece on it yet. So let's have a conversation before he gets to publicly say something. So I'm not going to sit here and dramatize it and say there's no way that this can be repaired and a Bryce Harper trade is absolutely on the horizon because this is an irreparable damage has been done to the relationship between Bryce Harper and the team. I'm not going to sit here and say that, but I am surprised at how the situation was handled.
I would agree with the idea that something probably needed to happen. I would almost you almost have to go back and think, okay, well, does Dave Dombrowski feel like Bryce Harper wearing his t-shirt in the batting cage during the offseason? Was that him saying something? Elite player? Was that him saying something? And was that enough? Okay, yeah, sure, okay, yeah. No, we don't need to talk. I saw the t-shirt. That's probably his response, and that's fine. It's no big deal. I said what I said. Bryce responded with his t-shirt. Cute. Let's move on. Maybe that's what Dave Dombrowski felt was the case. But to think that somebody like Bryce Harper at this stage in his career, with the clout that he has behind him and the cachet that he carries around, was not going to have any sort of public response, that would be misplaying your cards. That would be not understanding who your player is on the whole. That's not having a feel for the individual. And that's a tough look if, as Bryce said, when we sat down, we probably discussed how things are going to be handled. There's probably questions about, and when I say questions about, I don't mean you're questioning his leadership capabilities, but we're going to have a discussion about how we like to go about our business here. And the idea that things like that stay close to the vest, things like that stay in-house, that's probably an expectation from the player side. And the fact that that didn't happen makes me feel like one of the two individuals felt a certain way about their ego in the moment, and it wasn't Bryce Harper. That's how I look at that. Dave Dombrowski, by doing this, saying what he said, and not having the court awareness to reach out to the player on his own. To hell with needing your PR guy to tell you that this is probably a good idea. We understand that we're probably going to have to address this because Bryce hasn't said anything, and there's a strong likelihood that this will be questioned when we come to camp. The fact that you couldn't get out in front of that to any extent, that is a gross miscalculation. And it almost feels like Dombrowski is in a position going, well, look, we gave the player the money. The player is still just a player. I'm the one calling the shots. And this is how I am going to sort of spur this player along. And like Harp said, buddy, I don't, I am motivated by things that you will never, you don't possess that power to motivate me. I motivate me.
Jay,
that was the surprising thing to me. When Dombrowski made the comments originally, I admittedly didn't pay them a whole lot of attention because I assumed that he had the feel for his player and his superstar and the guy that he had attached himself at the hip with in this Phillies tenure, and that he very clearly did not. And Harper pointedly made that clear today that's not what's going on here. I think it's fascinating. And to go back to your one of the hypotheticals you tossed out at the beginning, a lot of these guys on mega deals long-term, the superstars, where we talk about like, could they potentially be moved or not? What does that look like? A lot of them are owed so much money that it almost becomes a non-starter. But Harper's deal is such where, like, I feel like if it does actually get to that point, the market, while not being robust because he's Bryce Harper and still owed lots of money and going to control to some degree where he lands, I'm sure, like, he's only owed $150 million for the next 6 seasons, and he's still an excellent player. He'd be entering his age 33 season, and I'm on record as saying I think the situation overall with the Phillies is more tenuous than their last handful of seasons of success would necessarily suggest. I just feel like I'm admittedly surprised at how bad of a feel Dombrowski seemed to have had for this. And like, yeah, Harper was not as good as he was in 2025 as he had been from 2022 to 24. Like, throw out the second MVP. Even 2022 to 24, he was not the same guy last year as he had been over that stretch. 146 OPS plus over those 3 years, 129 last year. So there's merit statistically to what Dombrowski said, but I also think that Bryce Harper is among a group of players historically where there's probably more evidence that he's got a second wind or a third wind or whatever you want to call this, then this is the end of the line for him. And I just, if it devolves further, I think the Phillies are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, this is something that you just do not want to do if you're I seriously can't believe that this had been allowed to linger the entire offseason. There's no way that, because it would be very obvious if this had been handled. It would be very
Correct.
obvious if this had been discussed, because you would get the PC answer that we saw from another individual who we'll get to when addressing what things look like when they're supposed to, quote unquote, be handled in-house, and you just try to stay professional because both guys are professionals. You would have gotten that sort of response. You did not get that response. You got the superstar player letting the world know that the GM made a gross miscalculation and that was probably not the best move.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, Dallas, I'm very surprised that maybe he did. Maybe Dombrowski did pick up the phone over the winter, and Bryce was just like, "I'm busy, dude. I'm in the cage because I'm not elite. You know, I'm trying to get back to being elite, so I'll have to give you a call. I'll see you in spring. You'll be there." Who knows? Who knows what happened there?
I also think, like, looking at it, and I didn't think about this until now, but looking at it from Bryce Harper's perspective, like, his contract is large in terms of the amount of total money that he will receive. It is exceptionally team friendly in terms of the average annual value that he gets per year. And the idea that he has given the Phillies, prior to 2025, 6 seasons where his average, his cumulative OPS was 924, and he has 1 season where he falters a little bit, and he's got the GM breathing down his neck, making public comments about him. He's probably thinking, yo, bitch, I was underpaid for the entirety of this contract right up until this point. And fact of the matter is, even in my down year, what I gave in 25, still underpaid for what you're giving me on an average annual value basis. So, like, I get it. This is why this should have been a private conversation. But, like, I'm still a clearly net positive asset for you and your best player. So, like, if I was him personally, I think he probably was more measured about it because he's had so much time to cool on it. But, like, I also give Bryce a little bit of additional credit for not taking it even more personally, given the way in which he's elevated this franchise compared to what it was before he got here and what it has been since.
And wild is a perfect way to encapsulate the feeling I believe he has. It's just wild to me. Like, it's pretty clear that there were some other things going on in the room, right? That there were some other issues that needed to be tended to. And you as the GM understood that. And this is what you choose to publicly comment on. This is how you choose to publicly isolate my performance. Okay. That seems fucking crazy to me, but sure, I guess. I guess.
I ultimately think that they'll get past this. I don't think that this is a situation where it's like, oh man, his days in Philly are numbered or what have you. Dombrowski, his reputation up until this incident has been that players love playing for Dombrowski-led teams because he's a communicator. Like, he's a guy that he's not afraid to go into the clubhouse, show face, have conversations at your locker, which is why I guess this is out of character. And it's not just the fact that he aired out one of his players. It's who It's who he made the comment about. It's like he's the guy. And you can go around and be like, yeah, Schwarber, Real Muto, like they're the captains of this team. It's like, but it's Bryce's team. Like he to Jayhay's point, everything changed once Bryce got there. That was the first building block that created this wave of talent that has since followed and led to, pretty much a postseason appearance every single year and flirting with a World Series title. It started with Bryce Harper picking the Philadelphia Phillies and saying, I don't want any opt-outs and I want a no trade clause because I bury me in Philly pretty much. So yeah, there's certain guys, and it sucks, but this is the truth. There are certain guys that deserve special treatment. Like, it's not, we're all one team and everyone's going to be treated equally here. That's not how that works. That's not how the real world works. And Bryce Harper should be one of those guys that essentially is untouchable.
And, you can say these guys are just employees or whatever and be dismissive of the idea that they should have agency or an opinion or sway in this. Bryce Harper is a non-trivial part of the Philadelphia Phillies franchise valuation, and why it is the way that it is right now. And there are not many baseball players that you can probably say that about. I think you can say that about Bryce Harper and what he has done for that franchise. And again, where it was before he got there and where it is now. So that was, if people need to go back and remind themselves and put themselves in the headspace of how transcendental the Phillies signing Bryce Harper was at the time, then I suggest that you do so. Go back and read the media at the time, because I almost feel like, because of the initial hype of Bryce Harper, we constantly run into this problem where Bryce Harper becomes underrated relative to the specter of himself or the greatness that was anticipated. And by any measure of greatness or reasonable calculation of what a baseball player could be, he has delivered on that promise. He is one of the greatest players of his era, and he will be in the Hall of Fame. And Jared's right. He deserves more input than the average baseball player, given the lifetime contract that he signed and what he's done for that team. I just think it's, you guys have said it's wild, weird, crazy, stupid, short-sighted, all of that stuff.
Next order of business. This past offseason, there was a story that came out that described the relationship between Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, the middle infielders of the Texas Rangers, as quote-unquote toxic. The relationship was toxic, and Corey Seager was asked about that, and here is what he had to say.
Describe your relationship with Marcus.
I think that's things that are in-house that people don't know about, right? That's just all speculation. Me and Marcus had a fine relationship. We both respect each other. We were both professional, and we knew how to go about our business and try to accomplish a goal, and we did that in 23. So, like I said, you can't take that away from us.
So, a non-answer, saying that they have respect for each other, saying that it's in-house. It's you certainly didn't. Reading between the lines, it's there was obviously, there was something there. There was a little bit of an incident or a beef or a disagreement, whatever it is. He didn't completely come out and say yeah, man, that's bullshit. Me and Marcus, we're good. We're friends. Love the guy. He wasn't super complimentary to Marcus Semien, whose reputation, maybe we're just more privy to it because we have Dallas Braden on the show, and he knows the quality of character that Marcus exhibited in Oakland. So I think maybe we hear more about it, particularly on this show. But having that information, Dallas, it doesn't this not pass the sniff test? It doesn't really sync up. And how many players how many players that played with Marcus Semien could you ask about Marcus Semien and get a wishy-washy answer like that?
Only one that probably had beef with him. That's who you would have. That's who you would have to find to get that kind of answer from. Straight up, I will defend Marcus Semien till the end, till the very end. And I've talked about it, as you said, Jared, many times on this show. And it's, for me, that's not a non-answer. That's giving the answers in a way that you understand what the deflection represents. I'm going to deflect to us both having a mutual respect for each other because we're good players. so there was a problem. I'm going to deflect and say that we accomplished what our ultimate goal is, right? So another way to say those things are, look, he's a good player. I'm a good player. We put aside our differences and we got the job done. Didn't we win a World Series? How bad could the beef have been if that's the case? And nobody's telling you that it was bad right from the jump, but there's an idea that things soured over time. And there's the idea that if you're trying to maintain culture on top of building culture on the foundation that already existed when individuals come into the building, if you prevent that from happening because of how toxic the relationship devolves to, that's a problem. That is a problem. Nobody that has ever played with Marcus Semien is going to tell you that this guy doesn't care about his teammates, that this guy doesn't care about building camaraderie, or that he puts on the back burner what it means to have a cohesive unit and only prioritizes himself. Nobody's going to tell you that about Marcus Semien. It's been noted that Corey Seager is somebody who kind of operates on his own program. It's been talked about. It's been discussed. Not just by me, by people who cover the team. There were individuals who came out and talked about the fact that, well, you know what? Some guy tries to bring the team together. You try to create these team bonding experiences. And, well, there's another guy who just doesn't make himself available. And then what you start to do is create a divide because players who were there who feel like they have to follow one of these leaders are now kind of left to have to decide, well, let's just say, do I go to this player's picnic or do I go to this player's picnic? And it's like, hey, I was trying to have a picnic for all of us. I was trying to bring us all together and have a picnic together. And in the face of that, somebody decides to have a separate picnic. Why? Why can't we all just sit on the same blanket and open the same basket? Why do we have to go to different parks? Why do we have to sit on different blankets? Why do we have to open different baskets? It doesn't have to be that way.
So then let me ask you this, Dallas, from a team perspective, right? Like Corey Seager at this point is the much better player than Marcus Semien. But from a culture standpoint, like what should I make of the fact that the Rangers chose Seager over Semien? It's like, all right, you're just a better player, so that's the guy that we want around, or saying, like, what does that mean to the idea that like culture doesn't matter? You know what I mean?
No, I understand what you're saying. And yeah, I think because, I mean, who was the commitment made to first?
I mean, it was the same winter, wasn't it?
Seager came on, but I mean, Seager signed first, did he not?
I can't remember the order. I just remember it was the same winter.
And I think that the idea of handing Seager the keys was because, and one guy you're handing shortstop to, the shortstop, another guy was willing to relinquish his position to make that relationship work. And so it's almost like, well, you know what? We're going to prioritize this individual because this is kind of where we put our chips initially. And we appreciate the willingness of Marcus Semien to do what he did. But I would be willing to say that there's maybe a lack of understanding of how things were operating, even within the confines of that front office, on what the room was really like.
Yeah. Jayhay, you have a thought?
No, my only thought is my recollection of the reporting is also that they at least dangled the idea of trading Corey Seager too this offseason. Like that was something that was at least out there. I think, yes, Corey Seager is currently a better player. He's also owed an enormous amount of money compared to Marcus Semien. And that's probably the number one reason why they found it possible to move Marcus Semien in a deal that worked for them. And they did not find that sort of deal for Corey Seager. And just to go back to the original audio, if you start by describing your relationship with someone, and the first thing you bring up is respect, you fucking hate that person.
Yeah.
Like that is like, if you like the person, you say how you like them and they're your friend and you get a lot, like if you'd go right to respect, first of all, you don't respect them probably, but it's like the opposite. But yeah, anyway, that's all I have.
I agree. Like if you like someone, it's like, hey, Jared, what do you think about Jayhay? Fucking love Jayhay. Great guy. Love the guy. You know, works really. Then you get into the other side. Works really hard, dedicated, yada yada. But if you like the person, you immediately start with like, oh, I love that guy. You know, like there's a mutual respect. You know, like I respect what he does. He respects what I do.
There was a professional relationship.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, okay. Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah. So it was almost not professional, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Anyways, it's over. And Marcus Semien's on the Mets. It's just we've all moved on. Speaking of the Mets, we can talk about the clubhouse issues that persisted in the Mets locker room, and so we got to talk to Soto, we got to talk to Lindor, and Lindor said we've always pulled for each other, we've always wanted what's best for each other. Are we all best friends? That's not how, so this is a no. That's not how it works in the clubhouse. But we are friends. We're good teammates. We care for each other. We love each other. And we want what's best for each other. We have a lot of new faces here, guys that seem like they're going to work hard and they're going to do whatever it takes to win. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. It's all about winning and everybody pulling in the same direction. Juan Soto said, that's in the past. We forget about it. We focus on 2026. Very Bill Belichick of him. And then there was a quote from Carlos Mendoza, the manager of the Mets. He was on Michael Kay show, and he called it a corporate clubhouse. That's where I got that phrase from earlier. Not that guys didn't like each other. They respected each other. They got along. So basically, like, we're almost using respect. We're subbing out the word respect for tolerance. It's like, yeah, do you respect it? I tolerated Marcus Semien. I tolerated him. Yeah, the guys in the clubhouse, they tolerated each other. Like, we're almost just taking out a word that's abrasive and replacing it with a softer word like respect. But that's what they mean, right? You know, that's it's almost like that's the synonym.
And do you know how incredibly difficult it is to coexist over a championship season with people that at best you tolerate? And in the game of baseball, where you have to quite literally at times sacrifice yourself for the betterment of these people that at best you're tolerating, do we not see moments where we could just go, you know what? Fuck that. I'm actually not going to be sacrificing myself or my numbers or my at bat for this individual. That's just simply not happening. I'm not going to do it. No. Why would I? I don't like them. And if they can tolerate that, fantastic. If they can't tolerate that, well, as they put it, this is corporate America. One of us is going to go. And for Soto, he's going, well, it ain't going to be me. I'm not going anywhere.
Can you speak to that, Dallas, out of any of the A's team? Like, take the best A's team that you played for. I know, like, none of them made the playoffs, but like there were probably some good teams, whatever, good players. How much of the bickering or the headbutting or any type of friction, how much of that never sees the light of day? Or let me two-part question. If and when that does happen, how often does it see the light of day on bad teams, and then the same incident would be kept in-house on a good team?
I think, and this is how I'm going to answer that question. If you have good culture, even if there are individuals, multiple individuals that are sort of, quote unquote, tolerated, the top of the leadership ladder makes sure that everybody, every rung below them, understands how this is going to be handled. And when those leaders have the respect that they do, then you don't hear about it. You don't talk about it. The people who cover the team on a daily basis probably have a lot, like the beat writers, they have a good feel for it. They have a better feel for it because they see how the interactions occur in the clubhouse after the game. They hear the conversations. players are willing to open up to them, because a good beat writer will understand that there's things that they're probably just not going to put in print, because that will absolutely deny them access to this sort of insight in the future. And a good beat writer will allow that information to help them shape the narrative around certain individuals without throwing individuals under the bus. And then once those individuals either leave town or a blow up occurs, now there's perspective, and that writer can contextualize how this relationship has unfolded, because they have a informational track record that they can reference, right? But on teams that do not have quality leadership at the top, I think you get some of these sort of answers that we're starting to hear from different sources. And it's because you're just not too concerned at the end of the day with what other people think, and you're willing to allow people to read between the lines and just move on, because you're on your own program, kind of, and you're unaffected by what other people think. And so you're willing to let those thoughts start to build. And sometimes they build negative energy. And I think in good clubhouses, even when there's individuals who are sort of tolerated, like you look at it like this: he might be an idiot, but he's our village idiot. Okay. And so we can make fun of him, we can talk shit to him, and we can write him, but we're not going to let this out for other people to form their opinions on, because that's between us. And to a certain degree, that individual has to be bringing something to the table for that to be the case. You can't just be a great player and be completely disliked in the room and that never make it to the light of day. That's not going to happen. Like, you got to be bringing something to the table. Like, look, sometimes he says dumb stuff. All right. Sometimes he does dumb shit. And ultimately, we love him because we know it's harmless, but we understand optically how it's not great. But if you're someone who just continues to create rifts, and someone who is almost causing divide because of how you whisper in this corner of the room, whisper in that corner of the room, what do we say? Misery loves company. And you start to unearth other individuals who are unhappy, and like that stuff starts to permeate. But that's where, as I go back to, good leadership steps in, and you address the room, you address the individual/individuals, and you get things back on track, because it is the most difficult thing to do. Like I think about some of the teams in the in the late 80s. Like think about the Cincinnati Reds, right? There's some folks who didn't like each other on that team. A lot of folks who didn't like each other on that team. I can speak to what I know about some of the veteran A's teams in the late 80s, 90s, even in the 70s. I can speak to it because I've gotten to know all those Hall of Famers. They say, look, everything's not fucking rainbows and butterflies. Like, good teams are going to fight. Good teams are going to get after it, because there's a level of expectation. And July and August, when things start to become that grind and you just don't like what certain guys are doing and you're getting fed up with it, like, there's no other way to handle this other than we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about it. And sometimes that means I'm going to punch you in the mouth because I've had enough of you. And
yeah,
that happens.
I heard some of those stories about the 19 Red Sox, like coming off the most wins. I think that's probably why it was more of that is, you're coming off a 108 win season. There's expectations to be that good again. And, there was a couple of instances where, guys were taking naps that they shouldn't be. Like, someone threw a bucket of like ice water on someone that was taking a nap. That caused like an issue, I guess. Guys that were getting haircuts when they shouldn't be, like that causing issues. So it does happen, but stuff like that doesn't always get out. Jay, let me ask you, put yourself in the shoes of a Mets fan, dissecting those answers that we got from Lindor and Soto. Is this a non-issue? Like, are we going into 2026 excited about the season and the potential of this team? Or is there a small part of you that's feeling like, I don't love that Soto and Lindor don't love each other. Like I thought when we signed Soto that it would have been this beautiful marriage, and like I don't love that it's not that, at least not yet.
I think I could say that I probably don't love it, but I also probably at the end of the day don't give a rat's ass, because I think this is, of all the stories that we've talked about, this to me is a non-issue. I just think this didn't seem to be, based on the reporting, to be so caustic and so negative between the two of them that it was derailing the season. Like, I know their actual season unraveled, but based on how I've interpreted the reporting, it didn't seem like this was the genesis of that. It just seemed like two guys who are the highest paid players on the team and two of the highest paid players in the sport who don't love each other. And I think a lot of people maybe just assumed that they would because they're non-white players, and it's like, oh well, they'll just like fucking get along, it's like the Latin clubhouse, they'll just it's obviously not that simple. But to me, at the end of the day, they were both enormously productive last season, and I expect them to be enormously productive moving forward. Non-issue. That's my verdict.
I like that take, because I think it is a little bit of both. It's like you are excited about the team. You're not letting that be a distraction. You don't necessarily love that they're not like the happy-go-lucky Manny-Poppy combo, but what does it matter if you're a good team, you're winning baseball games? So we'll see.
It would be cooler if the two best players on your team
were besties. Yeah. Here's Manny Machado weighing in with what he thinks about the Los Angeles Dodgers and the money that they've been spending. Here's former Dodger Manny Machado.
I fucking love it. I love it. I mean, honestly, I think every team should be doing it. They figured out a way to do it, and shit is fucking great for the game, honestly. So I think every team has the ability to do it. I hope all 30 teams could learn from that.
Well, that's just wrong. Yeah, that's just factually incorrect, Manny. I do like it's all relative, and I think in that sense, sure. I think that every team should spend a certain percentage of the revenue earned, and there are teams that pocket revenue and don't reinvest back into their team. So I guess from that standpoint, yes, like you want to encourage every team to reinvest a large chunk of the money that they make from their overall revenue. Yes, but stating the obvious, no, not every team, and even most teams cannot spend and sustain the type of spending that the Dodgers do. And that's not an equal playing field. So, but again, I think there was someone else that, who else publicly had similar. Was it Bryce Harper? I think Bryce Harper was, in addition to the Dombrowski stuff, he also said big fan of what the Dodgers are doing. But yeah, I mean, it's of course they're big fans of it, because what the Dodgers are doing are, I don't want to say inflating, because that sounds like it's like a negative or like a disingenuous way of doing it, but they are upscaling player salaries. So of course players are going to like that. It's like, all right, well, if this player is worth this, then what am I worth, and what's he worth in the future? Like, of course they're going to like what the Dodgers are doing. So, yeah, not a shock that Manny or whomever feels this way, that they're giving the Dodgers a thumbs up in terms of their spending and creating higher salaries for the other players. But no, like factually, no, not every team can do what the Dodgers are doing.
No, and I've gone on to explain how many times now the difference between the pool of money that the Dodgers have access to and the reason that they have access to that money. And this is before the championship run. This is before the back-to-backs. There's a reason why through the McCord sale and through the negotiations with Major League Baseball, things that were legally agreed to and then binded to, that the Dodgers and their valuation was such that it enabled them to tap into a different pool of resources than other teams might have readily available. And then with the inception of the TV deal, that that bolster things to a completely different level, right? So when we say, and that's something I think that needs to be contextualized and needs to be understood is there a investment strategy that could be adopted by every other team? Sure. But that's also something that you could say for every business across the board, whether we're talking about a Fortune 500 company, a tech startup, or the lemonade stand down the street, right? You can take what you have earned and you can choose to reinvest what you have earned and what you're going to net and try to bolster your product, or you could draw a line and say, this is where we're going to put this money in our pocket because we have earned this money. And this is part of having this piece in my portfolio is it's a money maker. It's a revenue generator. And I'd like for it to generate that revenue. And other teams just are simply not generating the kind of revenue that would allow them to reinvest into their product specifically. So you don't get to use pure cane sugar in your lemonade stand while the Dodgers have decided to grow a cane sugar field, right? You don't, that's what the players love. Like, man, that's the lemonade I want to drink. And I wish every team would make that kind of lemonade. And to an extent, you could probably have your own patch of a sugar cane field. You could probably grow a few rows here and there if you're the Pirates, if you're the Rockies, right? You might be able to do those things, but are you growing fields and fields and fields and fields and fields of sugar cane, maybe like the Dodgers can? Probably not, which means you probably can't invest to the point where the Dodgers can. And so could you adopt the strategy or a similar strategy? Yes. Could you do it to the extent that they're doing it? No. And that goes back to the settlement that was reached back when they sold the team. All that to say, there's not a player on the planet that's ever going to scoff at a team making these kinds of moves, because if you are a highly sought after commodity, if you are a talent, you would love to be plucked from whichever team you're on. Or once you make it to the free agent sugarcane field, you'd love to be the reed that gets chopped down and that gets processed into the Dodgers lemonade stand, because oh my, how sweet that would be. Now we're talking about perennial postseason trips. We're talking about opportunities to win championships because they just keep growing and growing and growing and growing this sweet, sweet nectar. I want to be a part of that. No player's ever going to tell you that they want that to stop. What they'd like to have happen is other teams put their hand up and go, okay, we get it. Shit, you got us. Of course, we could probably be spending a little more money, but something ownerships are just simply never going to do is they're never going to raise their hand and go, look, could we spend more? Yes. Are we going to? No. Why? Because we like to make money and we like to pocket some of that money. So that's why we're not like, that's the openness and the honesty and the transparency that people are after that you don't get from corporate America, right? Like think about all the bailouts that came during COVID and stuff like that, right? When the airlines were going belly up, when they were going wings up, what was happening? Not only were they getting bailed out, but the CEOs and the executives were receiving mega bonuses in a time where we're going, hold on. Why are the airlines and why are the banks and why are these folks getting bailed out and the executives are receiving bonuses? How is that happening? Like it's just, I think it's an understanding that players love to see the competitive drive come from a franchise. And if you have the resources to maintain that drive and renew that drive year in and year out, that's something you would like to see. I think what's happening is, hey, you want parity in the league? Well, we feel like to an extent, everybody could be just a little bit more competitive. But instead, the parity it feels like we're after is teams being more than willing to be, quote unquote, boxed in with a salary floor and a salary cap. Because what do you think is going to happen? You think that once we institute that floor and that cap, that teams are going to continue to egregiously spend? I understand that teams are already willing to eclipse certain thresholds of the luxury tax to the point where you had to create the Uncle Cohen tax. With that being said, what's far more feasible based on what we have seen? Would it be teams stay within those parameters and then look at you and go, look, we'd love to spend more, but we just can't, right? There's a cap. That's what we all agreed to. There's a cap. I can't spend more than that. Well, you could if there's a threshold with penalties. It feels like you were willing to do that before. You were willing to do that in the past when there was a luxury tax. I don't know what they would call it or what they would rename it. Does that get completely removed? Is the penalty even stiffer? And that's what I think would end up happening is, okay, we'll have the luxury tax or we'll have the luxury threshold applied, but it's going to start at 50%. And then it's only going to get even crazier. And then teams are going to go, whoa, would you have us spending, $2 on the dollar? Would you have us just doubling these contracts? So my payroll comes out to be, what was the cap that they've thrown around? $240 million. So would you have us spending $480 million? Is that what you want us to do? Spend $480 million as opposed to the 240? Because the minute that we go over it, like that just, and I think that would honestly give teams an out or give them sort of a rebuttal when it comes to wanting to spend more. Teams would finally go, we just, oh man, our hands are tied. Sorry, we can't do much. We spent at least this much. Isn't that good enough?
Jayhay, what's your take?
I think what Dallas laid out is correct. I also think that I'm taking all of these comments, Harper's, Machado's, with a grain of salt. I mean, to me, it is the equivalent, it is the opposite PR side of the league and the league's reporters putting out the information that they want out there. This is the two of the highest paid players in the sport, two guys who have been torchbearers for contract standards and pushing that forward, speaking out on spending. And I think it's not at all surprising. And I think the fact that Machado's comments came off the way that they did, maybe a little unnatural, perhaps a little overly enthusiastic, is probably because they're talking points that are being delivered to these people to get out there. And that's not a criticism. That's just a reality because they're fighting a battle and these are two of their most prominent voices in that regard. So it's not the last we'll hear from these two specifically, I bet, and certainly not the last that we'll hear over it overall.
Yeah. I mean, that was my tweet reaction when I saw the quotes. It had nothing to do with the Dodgers. I was just like, yeah, the lockout's going to get ugly. Like if you've got players being like, what the Dodgers are doing is fucking awesome. And then what you have owners having mental breakdowns being like, this is the worst thing that the sport could ever have is what the Dodgers are doing. So yeah, it's going to be contentious. It's going to get ugly. We are going to miss baseball games. It's going to suck.
But like, ask yourself though, why? Like from a fan perspective, from two fans who are not invested in any sort of player compensation, who aren't a part of a union, who aren't a part of an alumni association, for two fans who see the game through similar lenses that I do, why would it be bad for the owners?
Why would what be bad for the owners?
What's the downside to just keeping things as they are? Understanding that we're all not stupid, and understanding that fans are not stupid, and understanding that fans know that these teams generate revenue. Okay.
Sure.
And I continue to harp on the fact that the two unicorn stable that the Dodgers have with Ohtani and their current situation with the selling of the team and how their revenue share division is working for them in their favor right now. Because once that deal is up, understand that the Dodgers are now going to be forced to commit significantly more money to their rev share pool, right?
Isn't that like 2039? Like it's not even anytime soon.
I get it. But whose fault is that? That's not the Dodgers' fault.
That's Major League Baseball's for letting it happen. Yeah.
So then what would be the next reasonable move? What would be the next reasonable action to take if you're Major League Baseball and you're trying to avoid that, or you're trying to
legalized salary suppression is that, like, that's what we're staring down is a cap and a floor, a limit on deferred payments, a punishment for deferring payments for X amount of contracts, like all stuff that the players union is never going to agree to, which is why we're just staring down a lockout. Like it's coming. Like it just, because there's going to be no bend or budge on either side. Both sides want two completely opposite things. They already had these discussions with each other in 2021. They got nowhere with them. And instead of kind of like agreeing to disagree, they just punted it 4 years down the line so that they could have these conversations all over again. And only this time we're coming off record revenues and viewership and everything is flourishing in the game. We're not coming off a pandemic where you had to miss over 100 games, so you're not reeling financially as a league or as owners or as franchises. Like you've had some half a decade of a healthy run of baseball being at its peak ability to earn. So they're not going to be afraid to lock out because they're not coming off a fucking pandemic now.
And I want to know, wouldn't the levers of deferrals, wouldn't that be something you would want at your disposal if you were an owner? Isn't that something that you want to be able to have? Yeah. Is that not? I mean, call me crazy.
Sure.
But you mean to tell me that we could kind of push this back and I could pay you afterwards, and in the interim, we might actually be successful and create a sustainable, successful run, and dare I say even a graduation from where we're at now in terms of perennial success to where we could be? And that might even help us pay off some of those deferrals a lot more comfortably. And we could just start to almost continue that cycle. And that could now be how we start to operate fiscally? You mean to tell me that's of no interest? Of course it's of interest. Of course it's of interest. So I think as fans who get frustrated that they don't believe that parity can exist, there's context behind what the Dodgers are doing, and that just simply cannot be overlooked for the sake of wanting to have this argument. You have to address the fact that it's quite literally one out of all 30 Major League Baseball teams that have the flexibility to do what they're doing right now, and it is not their fault that they have the flexibility. It was something that was legally negotiated to, agreed upon, and binded between that franchise and Major League Baseball.
Oh, man. When hair starts to thin, confidence can too. That's why Hims makes it simple to feel like yourself again with access to simple personalized care that fits your life and your hair goals. Tired of trying to figure out what actually goes with hair loss? Through Hims, you get access to clear solutions, expert guidance, and an online process that takes the confusion out of care. You've got places to be. Sitting in a waiting room for hair loss treatment isn't one of them. Hims makes expert care accessible on your schedule so you can skip the line and focus on feeling like yourself again. Hims offers convenient access to a range of prescription hair loss treatments with ingredients that work, including chews, oral medications, serums, and sprays. Doctor-trusted ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil can stop further hair loss and regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hims brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that fit your goals first. No hidden fees, no surprise costs, just real personalized care on your schedule. Think of Hims as your digital front door that gets you back to your old self with simple 100% online access to trusted treatments for real health concerns all in one place. For simple online access to personalized and affordable hair care for care for hair loss, ED, weight loss, and more. Visit hims.com/BID. That's hims.com/BID for your free online visit. hims.com/BID. This story pissed off a lot of people. According to a recent report, MLB broadcasts will no longer indicate whether a pitch is a ball or a strike within the on-screen strike zone as the box, as the league is exercising an abundance of caution to ensure teams cannot exploit the broadcast to their advantage when challenging pitches. Previously, broadcasts would indicate strikes as filled-in circle within the strike zone box, and balls would use a hollow circle. Now, all circles will look the same. The change will not be that noticeable for viewers. Pitches will still be displayed in the strike zone box, but they won't show the definitive right call via the filled-in or hollowed-out circles.
Oh my God! So you mean to tell me? You mean to tell me I'm not going to have an opinion now that the circle's not filled in? Oh, goodness! For a minute there, I thought I was getting entirely too smart for the television, but now that they're not going to fill the circle in, I go right back to not knowing whether that's a ball or strike. I go right back to not having an opinion. It's almost like the box isn't there. So when I see the circle on the inside of the box, but it's not filled in, I don't know. What could that be? Do you think that was a good pitch? I don't know. The circle's not filled in. What could it be? I don't know. The circle's not filled in. Stop it. Stop it right now. But do we have any question about where this came from? Do we have any wonder why this is happening? This is, like it or not, this is the progression of 2017. This is where we are at because of what happened in 2017. Okay? That's simple. And that's not putting blame on any one franchise, because as we both sitting here know, and as fans,
Sounds
I think
like
have
you're
become
blaming the
educated.
Astros, Dallas.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm blaming what was happening amongst multiple franchises, and unfortunately for the Astros specifically in that moment,
were the A's one of
they're
those
the
teams?
ones who got labeled that. I can't speak to who it was, Jared. That's not my place.
It's not a no.
I can tell you. I can tell you that this is the graduation to that. This is the progression to that. But the idea is, if you have, I mean, how much time do we have to challenge the call? Seconds, right? You have seconds to challenge the call as either a pitcher or a hitter. So what they're trying to avoid is the instantaneous transfer of information, the instantaneous communication from whatever resource they might have or they think could be created to the player in that moment. That's what this is all about. Hey, if we're not showing anybody and we're not showing it in the stadium, then they're not going to have a reference for it. And there's no possible way that anybody would have access to this information in time to be able to make an adjustment. That's all this is simply about. So do I understand it? Like, do I understand where it's coming from? Yes. That doesn't mean that it makes a ton of sense, but it makes sense why they would be concerned about it. But then you think about the time and you're going, well, if there's only quite literally seconds between that being flashed on the TV screen and then players having an opportunity to make a call, like, what would be a form of communication that would allow a player to make that call, to make that immediate assessment? Somebody sees it in the tunnel. What then has to happen? By the time you yell it out there and they hear it, hey, that was it. No, time's already passed. Time's already passed.
Chris Sale said about it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, let's play that.
I will never challenge a pitch. I will never do it. I won't do it.
Why?
Because I'm not an umpire. That's their job.
That's fair enough.
I'm a starting pitcher. I've never called balls and strikes in my life. Plus, I'm greedy, and I know that. I think they're all strikes. You know, especially the catchers nowadays. The way they catch the ball, the way they receive, they make them all look like strikes. And again, I'm a starting pitcher, and I'm greedy. I like pitches that are on the corner that might be a little off. In the heat of moment, especially you throw a good pitch, you got Murph or Baldy or whoever back there, and they kind of catch it the right way. I mean, they make a lot of balls look like strikes, and I don't want to take away one of those challenges that might be needed later on in the game. And I've dealt with it before. It's across all games and my entire career, there's been balls called strikes and strikes called balls, and you just kind of deal with it. Now, if my catcher has something to say about it, I'll leave that to him. But I've dealt with both sides, and I'm fine to kind of.
You think that's crazy, Jayhay?
I don't know if it's crazy. I understand where he's coming from on it, but I think I'm skeptical that it's going to sustain. Like, I find it hard to believe that he's going to be out there in a key spot, get a pitch called a ball that he is dead set convinced is a strike, and he's not going to want to challenge it. Like, I don't know, maybe your competitive edge will just take over in that moment, and he's saying what he's saying now in the calm pre-battle. But I would be surprised if pitchers are not engaged in this process just because they have never previously been umpires.
Yeah,
I just think it's kind of pointless to say I'm never going to do it, because now if he does do it, everyone's going to be like,
right, it's a
you
thing.
said,
Yeah.
but you said. So I don't know. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how teams choose to, I guess, allow permission. Like, there's got to be guys that a manager or whomever is like, you are fucking never challenging. Like, you do not, under any circumstances, have permission to challenge. I think Chris Sale would be one of the guys that has the thumbs up to be able to challenge if he would like, but he's saying that he doesn't want to. How many, Dallas, in your opinion, I mean, I'm sure it varies based on team, but I cast a net, like, give me a range. How many guys do you think will have the authority to challenge on any given team?
I think it will be around a handful. And because there's going to be criteria that has to be met, whether that's as an individual or game situation, right? That goes without saying. And I can tell you right now, and I talked about this, last year, when the ABS started to really become something that was going to be applied. It hit the minor leagues, and I told you, we're going to be forcing our players, and when I say our players, I mean having worked with the A's minor leaguers, we're going to be talking about how in live ABs, we're going to see who has a feel for these things. And then based on your strike zone awareness and what the in-house algorithms spit out and tell us about your strike zone awareness, there's probably going to be a list that comes up. And if you're not on it, you want to know what that means? You don't. No. Other people get to challenge. You do not get to challenge. You just simply don't have the strike zone awareness. What you think is a strike is just not. Something that I thought was interesting is the notion that we could start to see the reverse framing. The idea of balls getting boxed on purpose, like a strike that is a strike, but is now not being caught and stuck and dressed up how you would like to see done, maybe even with two strikes, in an effort to get a hitter who looks back and sees that the catcher had to reach slightly across his body, and instead of reaching slightly across his body and sticking that pitch, he reaches across his body and just kind of rides that pitch down and out of the zone. Because now when a hitter turns back around and sees that and is like, strike, what the, no, did you see the way he caught it? And it might take a little while for that to register, like, oh, that's right. It doesn't matter how he caught it. It matters if it crossed the strike zone. And now that batter, maybe with two guys on and 2 outs early in the game, is like, no, challenge. Oh, shit. That was a ball and a half in the zone. Why did I do that? I did it because it wasn't caught well, because optically it wasn't received well, not how I'm used to it being received. And there is validity to that, because hitters will tell you, yeah, if I look back and I see a pitch that is not dressed up, that looks like it was a ball, that looks like it got boxed back there, in the heat of the moment, my first initial take is ball. Why? Because they're greedy too, just like pitchers are. They want to believe that they've got great strike zone awareness and that they would, in the blink of an eye, be able to tell you, yeah, that was close. Yeah, that was just off. Yeah. And for the most part, hitters do. And for the most part, pitchers do. That's why I can appreciate in theory Sale giving the respect to the umpires, because I think that's what I think there's a layer to that. Like, hey, they got a hard job. They do a pretty good job for the most part of calling balls and strikes, especially with the velocity in today's game, especially with the movement in today's game, right? We're talking 17, 20 plus inches of movement vertically, horizontally at 95 plus miles an hour at times. And that shit is tough to track and lock in on. So, but I know that if Chris Sale paints a heater that comes back with life on the inside part of the plate, and he gets one of these here, from the righty, and it clips, and he gets the ball call. Especially if it's late in the game.
But the catcher can challenge. The catcher can challenge,
and that's going to be, and maybe there's a communication between a pitcher who deems themselves not worthy for whatever reason to not be the umpire, and he's like, he looks into the catcher and he gives him this one, right? Like, hey, I thought it was a strike. Just as simple as a hands up. I thought it was a strike. What do you got?
All right. Drama continues. Maybe not drama, but the I guess following up of drama stories from the offseason, what have you. Kyle Schwarber was asked if Nick Castellanos was a distraction for the Phillies, and here's what he said.
Do you think the situation with Nick last year was a distraction at all?
I mean, that's here nor there. I mean, it's, we did what we did, right? I felt like that in the Dodgers series that, we played good games, right? Like, there were just things that we didn't execute, and we didn't walk away with wins at the end of the day. So it's hard to say here or there, right? Like, we put ourselves in the position of where we wanted to be, and we just got knocked out. So can't really say.
I feel like Schwarb's, after he's probably seen the clip, I bet you he wants that one back. He wants a mulligan on that answer. His facial expression and his body language was like, you just caught me extremely off guard with that question of, is Nick Castellanos a distraction? And I mean, his logic, so people took the body language and the tone as he's confirming, like, yes, he was a distraction. But if you kind of like read the transcript, I don't know, like, he's kind of saying like, we got knocked out, like, if that's if you want to say that that's a distraction, then you can say that that's a distraction. But like, we got knocked out. Like, what was the reliever's name? I forget his name.
Who? What are you talking about?
The one that threw the ball to the backstop and they lost.
Kirkering? Ryan Kirkering?
Yes. Like, did Nick Castellanos cause Kirkering to throw the ball to the backstop? No.
But listen, we just talked about the non-answers that we got from Corey Seager. We just talked about the non-answers that we got from like a Lindor and a Soto and right, like the read between the line responses. What I was going to say is,
he didn't say no.
Well, the most damning part of all of it is his eyeballs in this interview, because they get big. He doesn't blink, and you can see him scanning through his head like, okay, how do we not give a non-answer and also not throw anybody under the bus right now? I'm not sure I can put that together right now. What's the default here? Let's go back to just the lack of team success. Oh, okay, we'll do that. Well, we not one player lost it for us, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, that's about as good as it was going to get in that moment. So do I feel bad for Schwarber? Because he's one of the last dudes that I think you would even want to put in that position to have to remark on something like that. And it's tough that he did kind of get caught. He got caught in a pickle. Like he wasn't ready to be asked that, and did not have a built-in response. And I think a lot of that comes from Schwarber having an answer, understanding that you could probably admit that, yes, if we have a player doing what happened and having some interaction that clearly occurred to that extent, then that can only be a distraction. And how do you say that, though, without like just putting your teammate and probably a guy you appreciate on blast? Tough to do that, right? Because I mean, if that happened within our group, me, you, Jayhay, and we find out that somebody put their fucking feet up on the desk in somebody's office and walked in like during business hours or during a team building meeting or whatever, and you're shit-faced, and it's not that Castellanos wasn't shit-faced. He had a beer in his hand and didn't even drink it. But just the optics of that whole thing, like that's not a great look, and that absolutely changes things moving forward. So the fact that happened, how does that, what sort of vibe does that create now? Is it a distraction? And it's like, because I always go back to a moment that happened in the dugout when I was a rookie, and there was a player that was asked to intentionally walk somebody early in the game, and he came into the dugout after the inning was over, got out of the inning unscathed. But this is a guy who is super, super competitive, and he took his hat off and just proceeded to yell at the manager. Is that how we're doing things? Are we that fucking afraid? Are you that afraid of him? You have that little confidence in me? And I'm going, oh my, this happens in the big leagues. Like you just fucking yell at your manager. This is crazy. Wow. Okay. I get it. But I mean, look, that dude had every reason to feel that way. He had every right to feel that way, because I don't care who's in the box. You'd like to have the confidence of your manager, especially early in the game, to just attack this guy. Who's the hitter? Vladimir.
Interesting. We lost Jayhay because his son shut his Wi-Fi off. So he's coming back.
Unbelievable timing.
I had a different read on the Schwarber thing. I think ultimately, had this happened a year or two ago, that Schwarber probably just gives an actual non-answer. But how does this resonate with you, that this new contract with the Phillies is this crowning of like, you're the guy, like you are the leader of this team? And before, it's like you were a very nice complimentary piece to what we have going on. But now this is kind of your clubhouse. So when we're going to ask about clubhouse culture, you kind of have to give us an answer because you're the guy.
And that's exactly where I was going to go, is when we were talking about the Bryce Harper deal. And I still believe that it's Bryce Harper's clubhouse. I still believe that. I don't think there's any arguing, though, that there is now a shared responsibility, and Schwarber, having feel, understands that and is like, I can't just get away with not addressing this. I can't get away with some canned answer here. I kind of have to acknowledge it to whatever extent I can. And unfortunately, he just wasn't able to, in the moment, mask what he was thinking with his nonverbal communication. That kind of tipped off the idea that there was probably issues that were seen and felt and understood. But with that being said, yeah, when you land the deal that he did, and you are as big of a part of that team as he is now, and it's understood, I think this just goes back to Schwarb's knowing, I got to say something here. I can't just, I can't tuck tail and hide behind a default answer that's not going to address what you just asked, because you don't want to be that guy, right? Like just as much as you don't want to be the guy who kind of gets caught off guard, you also don't want to be the guy who, because then what does the media do? Then they W a guy who, oh, you know what? This guy gets all this money and he can't answer these questions. He's just going to hide behind the non-answers, and like, because you know how the media can play, man.
Mm-hmm. Sure do. I know you don't believe me, but the BID merch is coming. It is. BID merch is coming.
No, I don't believe I know.
I'm excited. No. I'm ready to go.
No.
I know you're excited, Jay.
No. Hey, look, Jared, you know what? If you want my opinion on the BID merge situation, I'm going to tell you this.
Sure.
I respect you. We're both professionals. I believe that you're well intended. And I mean, look, in 2020, 2021, we had merch, right? We did merch.
Yeah, we're getting merch on opening day.
2018, we did merch
on opening day.
You know what I mean? We did merch. Yeah. So like, we brought merch to the people.
2026 opening day, we are getting merch. With the help of Shopify. I always say Spotify. The help of Shopify. The commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. From baseball is dead to brands just getting started. Get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. Accelerate your efficiency, whether you're uploading new products or trying to improve existing ones. Shopify is packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. Get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. Easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. Best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. What if people haven't heard about my brand? Well, Shopify helps you find your customers with an easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. And what if I get stuck? Shopify is always around to share advice with their award-winning 24/7 customer support. Tackle all those important tasks with in one place. From inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. Everything is all in one place, making your life easier and your business operations smoother. And did I mention that iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world? It's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. It also helps boost conversions, meaning less carts going abandoned and more sales for you. It's time to buy those, turn those what ifs into cash money dollars with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/dead. That's DEAD. Shopify.com/dead. Shopify.com/dead. I mean it. Opening day. A big old drop. A big one. Speaking of big old drops, Munetaka Murakami said he's the reason why they're going to have bidets all throughout the White Sox clubhouse now. He's a man who believes in change, and he's a man who is of high class. And if you're one of those people that you don't believe in the bidet, please do not knock it till you try it. Once you go bidet, toilet paper ain't okay. You know what I'm saying? Once you go bidet, TP ain't okay. Like you are locked in on the bidet lifestyle for the rest of your life, pretty much. So just be prepared for that. Well, look, there's actually an episode of South Park where they I believe it's Randy tries out a bidet and then he just never goes back, and it's a life-changing experience. In Dallas, I know that you can speak to this.
Yes, and the media will cover it, right? You request a spray for the anus. You request a spray for the anus, you become famous. That's how that works.
Right.
That's right. That is how that works. And you know what? You know what's great to hear too is you don't ever have to worry about Munetaka Murakami getting blogger TJ. That's never going to be a thing. I think we're talking about making a cultural impact, a cultural shift. Yeah. It happened with the no less than 396 tweets the day of the Murakami signing. by the White Sox, and they just continue to push the envelope forward. I love it. I absolutely love it. But anybody who's ever experienced one, that was my favorite part about, I should say the in-house ramen and sushi on deck every single day in the clubhouse, as much as you want to eat, was also a huge hit. But the bidet, like the showering experience, like when you walk into the shower, you see all these stools and you see this like little shower head. You're like, why does that stool have a hole in it as well? Oh, that's nice. That is nice. And then, I mean, your toilet, you're like, I feel like I'm sitting on a dam. Like, I feel like I'm sitting on a flowing waterfall right now that I can control. This is incredible. Like, wow, I didn't know I had to go to the bathroom for the 6th time today already. Like within the last hour. Like, buddy, you haven't even eaten. What are you doing in there? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It is an experience. And that's why I think we're going to start to see, like, straight up, if you are a plumber or a toilet store in, like, on the south side of Chicago, you need to be making this shift right now. You need to be making this shift.
I might invest.
You need to start slanging these babies.
Yeah. I think now's the time to like invest in like the bidet ecosystem in the south side of Chicago.
I think it's a market that is flush with opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, I also feel like, I know he signed in Cincinnati, but I feel like there's got to be something that can be worked out to get JJ Bleday to Murakami's side, so we can do like a little bidet day baby sort of thing, or Bleday's bidets,
Yes, Jay.
Yeah,
yes.
I could see like a JJ and a Murakami commercial like airs locally in Chicago. Yeah, whoever gets on this, be sure to thank me. But yeah, that's
I was
going to
say you could probably just have JJ in the commercial, not saying anything, and people would be like, "Who is it?" Oh, you!
I see what they did.
I see what you did there. Yep, I'm in love with it. I am in love with it. I might ask if I can use one of their You know what? I hope that they've extended this up into the press box. Like up into
Why don't you ask? I'm going to cut you off. Content opportunity. Why don't you have Murakami show you how to use a bidet?
Well, I am fairly versed in bidet usage.
But the point isn't that it isn't about you, Dallas. Nobody's saying that you can't use a bidet. I'm saying that it is a content opportunity for him to show you. Yeah, we get it on cam, the whole thing. It's good.
Yeah, I was going to say that may be a little uncomfortable. Like, all right, so
not willing to push the content envelope. Okay, got noted. Okay,
my pants are down. What's next? Look, there are individuals who, and I'm not going to name any names, but when guys are hanging around after the game, waiting for you to piss in a cup because you have a drug test, and they're like, "No, you can't do this, you can't do that." Like we're just going to follow you around basically until you have to go pee. Okay, you know what? I do got to go to the bathroom, but I'm not going to stand there and pee. Instead, I'm going to go sit on the toilet, and you're going to have to walk into the stall with me, and you're going to have to shut the door behind you. And now I'm sitting on the toilet, and I'm looking directly up at you while I'm holding this cup between my legs in the toilet and just absolutely, just wrecking the porcelain while that's happening. Like those are things that have been done before. Those are things that have been done before. Yeah. And I'm sure that guy would appreciate a courtesy flush and a nice little bidet rinse. Should that ever happen again.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I'd love for him to allow me to take that thing for a spin. That'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, it can't be that crazy to get into the White Sox clubhouse.
No, I mean, we can get there. I just don't know how, don't know I can go walk in and use their bathroom. That's probably not a thing.
They won't care. It's the White Sox. Jayhay, do you have any award-winning Nuggs today?
Brother, don't I?
Wow.
So, just gonna do a little aside here. Not an enemy of the pod. Certainly, I don't have any personal beef with Barstool Nate. But oh boy, listen, we leave that company a long time ago. Obviously, their baseball content, Clem and Clance, notwithstanding, goes to fucking ass. And Hubs too. Shout out Hubs. But Nate is a guy who definitely should not be talking baseball. And he, in response to the Bryce Harper stuff, he decided to do a column where the lead was 14 years in the league, under 2,000 hits, under 400 homers, never healthy, hit 200 in his only World Series, so on and so forth. So obviously I was a little late to it, but I got around to it today. Just a friendly reminder that Bryce Harper's 986 career postseason OPS is the third highest in Major League Baseball history, behind only Beltran and Pujols. His postseason OPS is 39 points higher than postseason legend David Ortiz, and 101 points higher than the guy whose literal nickname is Mr. October, Reggie Jackson. Harper's one of 11 players in MLB history to rack up at least 350 homers and 150 stolen bases through his age 32 season. The other players on that list: Trout, Vlad, A-Rod, Griffey Jr., Sosa, Bonds, Canseco, Frank Robinson, Hank Aaron, and Willie Mays. And
pretty good.
Obviously, the fewer than, he said, the under 400 homers part is what kills me, because obviously his career is not over, and a guy having almost 400 homers through his age 32 season is a feather in his cap, not a negative on his resume. His 363 career homers through age 32 are the 27th most in the sport's history. He has more homers at this point in his career than the equivalent careers of Vladimir Guerrero Sr., Willie McCovey, Mike Schmidt, and Frank Thomas. So that's my little aside on Bryce Harper, in case anybody needed a reminder. German Marquez, not a transaction that we got to on the pod, but he has signed in that batch of Padres signings that included Nick Castellanos and Griffin Canning. Marquez is going to the Padres. He had a 6.70 ERA last season. That is the sixth highest ERA since 2000 in a season of at least 26 starts, lower than only Colby Lewis in 2003, Jose Lima in his famous 2005 season, David Cohn in 2000, Ubaldo in 2017, and Antonio Senzatella in 2019. So obviously well-staffed with Rockies there. As an aside, not a nug, but I don't know that I have much hope that the Padres can do much with Marquez at this point. I would have been very curious what an alternative career path for German Marquez would have looked like, pitching his career somewhere outside of Coors, because there was a period of time where German Marquez, putting aside really like if you looked at context neutral stuff and took the Coors part out of it, 23, 24, 25 years old, German Marquez was pretty fucking nasty. We'll see if they can get anything out of him at this point. Again, not super optimistic about that. Hold on. Luis Rengifo, he signed a deal with the Brewers. He'll look for a bounce back. He posted a 775 OPS and 3.8 B-WAR in 749 plate appearances across 23 and 24, dropped down to a 622 OPS and 0.4 B-WAR in 541 plate appearances last year. And those are the Nugs.
Thank you very much, Justin Havens.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas Braden, do you have a final thought today?
Yeah, I want to shout out Manny Machado for signing AJ Preller to a multi-year deal.
Yeah, that's huge for him.
Manny said, "Man, great job by AJ getting a $20 million player for pennies on the dollar. Somebody should sign AJ to a multi-year deal." And guess what? The Padres were like, "You know what, Manny? You're fucking brilliant. You son of a fucking bitch, Manny. You are fucking brilliant," is what they said, taking a page out of Manny Machado's book in his appreciation for what the Dodgers are doing. So, and also like to shout out Zach Gallen, who is returning to the snake pit. Who's
crawling
once
back
again
to the snake pit.
Once again, the Arizona Diamond. I guess you could look at that way. But, he's getting the same exact deal that was offered to him, right? He was offered the qualifying deal. And was like, no.
Correct.
No.
And now
Let me
there
see
won't
if I
be a
can get
pick
some more.
attached.
There you go, Jayhay. There you go. Scott Boras at it again. At it again.
Yeah, that might be a stretch given that he had to settle for the qualifying
1 year
offer.
deal,
But
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but look. Is it? Is it?
Well,
I don't
is
know.
it what?
He goes back into free agency with no pick attached.
No,
Well, yeah, but
that is
you
a
can't
nice
double qualify offer anyway.
that is a nice maneuver at the end of this. I just don't think you can qualify the whole experience as a win. But I'll use my final thought actually to pick up on the Zach Allen thing, because I think the D-backs, like a little tip of the cap here, I think the D-backs did a pretty rock solid job on navigating what I thought was an interesting or potentially difficult offseason to navigate, because I think at some point during this offseason, again, just my opinion, I qualified them as like one of these teams that's a little bit in the middle, where they are invested in the present and have continued to invest in their roster, but probably aren't realistically good enough for a championship push. But I think they handled their offseason beautifully in terms of controlling what they were able to control and bringing back a team that I think is going to be competitive. I think most projections have them in the low to mid 80s for win totals, which is right at the point where bringing back a Zach Gallen would be extremely beneficial to their postseason odds. In addition to the Gallen stuff, brought back Merrill Kelly, spent real money to bring him back after trading him away. Obviously, the Nolan Arenado and Carlos Santana acquisitions, I don't think those are going to be game changers, but I think particularly Arenado, it's probably something of a net benefit for them, given what they had in house. And again, we criticize teams for not I criticize teams for not investing in their products, and Arizona continues, to their credit, to invest in the current product. Like I know Corbin Burns is just kind of off to the side because he got hurt, but that was a major, major investment that they've made. They're paying Merrill Kelly $20 million a year. They're bringing back Zach Allen on 21 and change or whatever it is. And I think they've gone from a team that I think would have been on the outside looking in to a team that's squarely in the wild card picture with these transactions. And it seems like a good deal for Zach Allen too, because I candidly have no idea what his 2026 is going to look like, because you have the track record prior to 2025, but it was not that dominant run that he had, or that very good run, was not necessarily predicated on like overwhelming swing and miss or individual pitch types that were like super, super nasty or dominant. It was more like being good at lots of different things. And so I'm curious to see how, after losing the vast majority of that in 25, he bounces back in 26. But overall, I just think the D-backs, not the best offseason, probably not even a top 5 offseason, but given the cards that they were dealt and the position that they're in on the win curve, I think they did a really nice job. That's my final thought.
To piggyback off that too, the fact that Zach Gallen can get 1 year for like basically the qualifying offer, given the season that he had, and Lucas Giolito is still out there, is crazy to me.
Well, okay, so now I'm going to piggyback off of that. Does the news that we didn't bring up with Hurston Waldrop experiencing elbow discomfort for the Braves, which is now the second Braves rotation injury issue that they've faced in the last week with Schwellenbach as well, like, is that a Lucas Giolito potential destination now? Because that
should have been all along.
And maybe so, but that rotation depth, which I think we all had concerns about to begin with, and we talked about that with the Schwellenbach stuff. I think you might have left at that point last week, but it's getting dicier and dicier for them. So to your point about Giolito, maybe that's a spot where he could end up.
Yeah, I thought that was the fit all along. Now it makes even more sense. But again, like, it would suck if he had to settle for a 1 year deal. Like, he shouldn't have to do that for how he pitched. At least, I think Heyman had the fucking tweet. It was like, he had like his last 19 starts that he made. And keep in mind, like, he missed a whole entire year with elbow surgery, came back, and then his most recent 19 starts, he had like a 2.5. And it was like one of the best starters in baseball. Guy doesn't have a fucking job. How? Doesn't make sense. Anyways, very exciting episode today. Good shit. A lot of stuff that we could sink our teeth into. and hoping that we have more where that comes from for Thursday's episode, where we will be bringing back Family Feud. Very excited for that, and diving into all the baseball stories as we get even closer to the World Baseball Classic that is about to take over this podcast. Very excited for that. So stay tuned for the content ideas that we'll be rolling out. And opening day merch, it's coming. Can't wait. I guarantee
Baseball opening day.
it.
Baseball opening day.
Baseball opening day.
Okay. All right.
Major League Baseball opening day.
Just want to pin
Baseball
that down.
is dead merch. And you know what? If we don't get Baseball is Dead merch launching on opening day, Dallas gets a jersey from me. And I don't even want one from him. This is not even a jersey bet. This is if we launch the merch on opening day, I don't need a jersey from Dallas. I can only lose this bet.
Because you owe me a Vita Blue. Just know that. You owe me a Vita Blue jersey.
I do, yeah. I'm waiting to give it to you in person.
I don't believe that for a minute.
No, let's not go stones and glass houses on jerseys owed.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And the time that it takes to get to their intended destinations. Yes. Yeah. Because you did, by the way, hand deliver mine. I
did.
Yeah. So
Jay's was sent to his house.
The favor.
Two of them were sent to his house.
That's fire. It's a fire fucking jersey.
Fucking
just
autographed?
Just the beginning of my collection. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jayhay's was autographed. So it's like, all right, yeah, I could see why that one would take more time, but like mine was not. So you could have just, sent it. Could have just sent it.
The snowstorm on the East Coast. That's what slowed up the mail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't control the weather, man. Sorry.
Right. I'll be back on Thursday. We'll see you guys then.
We out.